Sports can be classified as cyclical and acyclical sports. Sports that have repetitive movement patterns are classified as cyclical. Examples of cyclical sports are running, bicycling, and swimming. Acyclical sports are those where the movement patterns are complex or mixed. Examples of these are soccer, rugby, or boxing. One of the challenges of designing training programs for athletes that participate in acyclical sports is the variability of movement patterns that needs to be developed. Sports can also be categorized as individual or team sports. Athletes that participate in individual sports rely only on their sole performance for the outcome of match games. In team sports, the outcome of match games is a collective effort. Getting a group of players to cooperate and work as a collective unit is challenging, especially at the youth level. It is imperative that coaches select activities that develop the social fabric of the team. We can further classify sports into contact and non-contact sports. Contact sports are more challenging to coach as we need to teach players how to be physically assertive without causing injuries to themselves or opponents. Soccer is an acyclical, collective, and contact team sport, making it a challenging endeavor to coach as there are many training parameters and variables a coach must manage in order to properly develop young players. All sports can be broken down into 4 major components. This allows us to study each sport in detail and aids in the design and implementation of training programs. The first component is the physical component, which is made up of 2 subcategories. The first subcategory is the coordinating capacities. The orientation coordinating capacity allows us to know the location and position of our body during different moments, and especially when making a movement. The combination coordinating capacity allows us to combine different movements into one. Performing a burpee is an example of this capacity. The adaptation coordinating capacity allows us to take a given movement and adapt it to an undetermined situation. The reaction coordinating capacity is a response to an outside stimulus with an adequate and proportional movement. The balance coordinating capacity allows us to make movements with a base of support or to resist an external force while we keep or maintain our balance. The rhythmic coordinating capacity allows us to make flowing movements such as in dancing. Running is another activity that requires rhythm, also known as cadence. The spatial temporal perception coordinating capacity allows us to move our body through different external objects, evaluating the velocity, the distance, and the weight of each. Please remember that under match conditions, these coordinating capacities occur simultaneously and not in isolation. The second subcategory is the conditional capacities. Strength is the ability of a muscle or a combination of muscles to overcome an external load. External loads can be objects, such as dumbbells, kettlebells, medicine balls, barbells, or just moving against gravity. For example, while sprinting 100 meters, the athlete must move the body against gravity, wind, and turf conditions. Endurance is the ability of muscles to carry out a given task for a given duration. For example, while running a 5K, the athlete must move his body through different terrain, gravity, and climate conditions for a given amount of time. Velocity involves movement of the body at the highest speeds possible that we can achieve. The distance covered by the athlete can be short, medium, or long distances. Technique comes from the Greek word techne, which means art or profession. Technique is basically protocols used or implemented to achieve a specific objective. In sports, technique is what allows an athlete to play the game. Most soccer coaches view technique as a skill implemented by a player when in possession of the ball. But there are other technical skills being carried out in soccer besides ball technical skills. There are running technique, jumping technique, tackling technique, charging technique, defending technique, and many, many more. When designing your soccer training program, you must develop all the technical skills necessary to play the game, not just ball skills. Tactics comes from the Greek word taktikos, which means to put in order. Tactics is an ordered steps or actions to deal with a given situation. Tactics is what allows players to perform in any given sport. But what is tactics specifically? Tactics are not isolated concepts or behavior. Rather, they form part of a specific plan or what is termed a strategy. A strategy is a plan that will help you achieve a specific goal. Normally, it is used in military warfare to engage enemy troops. In sports, we design strategies or game plans when we face opponents, and tactics are the steps or behaviors our athletes will carry out on the pitch to help us achieve them. How many strategies we can implement with a team will depend on age and level of skills the athletes have. In summary, technical skills allows players to play the sport or game, and tactical behaviors allows players to perform. The better an athlete can carry out tactical concepts under match condition, the better their performance can be. One of the most misunderstood concepts, and perhaps less developed during training, is the psychological component. The psychological components has a huge influence on sports performance. Playing sports requires a high degree of emotional involvement. There are various psychological subcomponents youth coaches must understand and be able to develop in young players. The first subcomponent is the relationship between self-image, self-esteem, and self-confidence. There is a pull-push relationship among these components. As self-image improves, this pushes self-esteem to increase, and this leads to better confidence and match condition. But the opposite is true. If the self-image a player has of himself is poor, then his self-esteem is going to decrease and his confidence on the pitch will be low. Improving body composition through a balanced approach of strength training, cardiovascular exercise, and proper nutrition can have a profound impact on self-image and confidence. As young players build muscle and reduce excess body fat, their bodies become stronger, more toned, and healthier, which enhances both physical appearance and overall well-being. Beyond aesthetics, achieving fitness goals fosters discipline, resilience, and a sense of accomplishment, reinforcing a positive self-image. The mental benefits of exercise, including the release of endorphins, help reduce stress and promote a more optimistic outlook. Over time, these physical and mental improvements lead to greater confidence, allowing young players to carry themselves with pride and feel more comfortable in the pitch. The second subcomponent we must develop is motivation. Our young players are continuously exposed to the ups and downs of participating in a sport. Only properly motivated players will be able to pick themselves up after failures by doing what they love, which is to play their favorite sport. This is why it is imperative that your training sessions be fun and challenging in order to make players feel passionately about the game and look forward to attend your training sessions. Another way to keep your players engaged in the sport is to avoid boredom. You do this by consistently increasing the intensity of training. If your training sessions have been planned correctly, the physical, technical, and tactical components should improve over time, leading to activities being executed at higher tempos and intensities as the season progresses. Lastly, to maintain motivation high, teach players to compete, not just win games. Many coaches only focus on the outcome of the game, and eventually, only a win will satisfy our young players. Learning to compete and to consistently perform game after game is crucial in the development of elite players. These are the players that can turn a losing game into a win. Teaching players to compete and to enjoy the game based on their performance, not just the outcome of the game, will yield very resilient players. And even if your team goes into a losing streak, because the training is fun, challenging, intense, and provides a learning environment, your players' motivation will not subside. The third subcomponent in our psychological development is called emotional control and is very tightly related with motivation. The lack of emotional control can make or break your team regardless of how talented your players are. The lack of emotional control can be the difference between optimal and subpar performances in match conditions. How can you tell if your players lack emotional control? During scrimmages and training sessions, observe the behavior of players in the losing team. Which players have decreased their effort levels? Which players are no longer maintaining the intensity of the activity? Usually, these players are only motivated by the outcome of the game. This lack of emotional control will manifest itself under match conditions, and it will become very difficult for your team to turn losing situations into wins. Another psychological subcomponent we need to be aware of and develop is that of concentration. We can break up concentration into a 4-column matrix. We have broad, narrow, external, and internal concentration. Broad, external concentration, assessing. The focus is on the general external environment that changes constantly and rapidly. For example, a center back realizes the winger loses possession of the ball and immediately readies to defend. During this phase, the player should scan almost the whole field. Broad, internal concentration, analyzing. The focus is on reviewing general thoughts and emotions throughout the game. Now the player begins to decide where to position himself in relation to the opponent. Continuing with the example of our center back, he now steps up to mark the more advanced opponent. During this phase, the field space scanned is smaller. Narrow internal concentration, preparing. Shifting focus in preparation to using a particular skill, mental rehearsal. As the ball is played to the opponent near him, the central defender is now thinking whether he should tackle or just jockey. The focus now is about a 10-meter diameter. Narrow, external concentration, acting. Now the player shifts his focus to getting involved in the action with the use of a given skill. Our young central defender decides to tackle and win the ball. The focus now is about 1 to 2 meters. It is very proximal to his vicinity. During a game, our young players will also face distractions, which can be external or internal distractions. External distractions can be spectators, opponent, or the context of the match. Internal distractions can be negative self-talk, fatigue, and lack of emotional control. As coaches, we must teach our young players how to manage and handle distractions. Usually, external distractions are brought on by the parents of the player. Properly educating parents on how their behaviors can impact their child performance is crucial for long-term development. Internal distractions can be more difficult to manage, but the following tips should help. Praise players when they execute a skill correctly. Ensure your training program is developing all the physical components as discussed in Chapter 1, Lesson 2. And lastly, as discussed earlier, teach players to enjoy the game from a competitive perspective, not just the outcome of the game.